Thank you so much for coming. My name is Vas. I'm one of the owners here. As you know, we've been around for over 20 years, and we're really happy to be part of this design community. We love doing these events, bringing all these creative people together. First, I want to thank our partners, FormFactorsSF, IDSA-SF, and SF Design Week. It's a big crowd tonight, exciting program, and I want to introduce our moderator tonight. Marieke van der Poel is the Chief Creative Officer and owner of trend forecasting company Proef. The Proef team helps their clients understand what people want within the next 2 to 5 years and assists in translating opportunities into strategies. Marieke loves inspiring beautiful products and holistic stories, helping our clients make the imaginable tangible. Together with Brandon Warren, head of the IDSA and senior designer at Razor, she founded FormFactors, an organization that helps independent designers show their work in design-minded spaces around the city. Marieke.
Thank you so much, Bas. Bas Caniris. You've always been such a great contribution to the design community. Thank you so much for hosting tonight. Always so supportive. It's really an honor to be here tonight. I think we should get started after that great introduction with some other great introductions. And it's really interesting to see you all here together. And we're going to have a little bit of a discussion around how you build your brands and how you lead a product-led company. Because I think that takes a lot of guts. You're all my heroes, and I'm sure there's a lot of people here that want to know how you did it and why you did it. Let's start at the end. Max Gunawa, I hope I say your name right. He's an architect, recently spoke at TEDx about his vision design concept, which is about having more using less, which I think will speak to these guys here.
Moreless.
Yes. And we hope he will be able to explain a little bit more about that concept later. He's been highlighted in many public publications like the Wall Street Journal with his products that you might be able to see around here soon, I hear August, called Lumio, which is a multifunctional lamp that unfolds like a book. Yes. Okay, and then next in our line is Michael Good. After a decade of working with all kinds of Fortune 500 companies, he went independent and founded a studio called Good 3 Studio. And it's in stores all around the world, from here in San Francisco to Tokyo. Great job, yeah. And then we have Beau Oyler, who you might recognize from Shark Tank. He is the designer of vertical wall garden that is also here in this in the store just at the beginning, called Urbio, and he has previously designed all these award-winning lifestyle products for Williams-Sonoma, Nestle, and Clorox, and he's also part of a design cooperative. Sorry, I'm Dutch, and it's called Enlisted. And Urbio was actually part of FormFactors in our very first year, 2 years ago, and we're very proud of your success. It's good to see you. And then we have Joe Tan, Markus Diebel. They're one of San Francisco's, I think, most illustrious design duos. It's nice to have a duo in this city. And after being at IDEO and running the well-known brand Incase, they founded Moreless together last year. And one of their recent well-known products is the Soma water carafe. You can see it if you want to get some water over there at the drink stand. And they could safely be called successful serial founders, I think. Joe Tan was a co-founder of design consultancy One & Co. And Incase, of course, and then Markus founded Design Raw and an uber cool jewelry brand called Manimals. Thank you all so much for being here. Let's get started. I wanted to get something out of the way because I feel like the thing that you guys will probably all want to tell us is who you are and what you stand for and what your design philosophy is. So will you very quickly explain to us in maybe 1 or 2 lines what your company stands for, what your brand stands for. Maybe a little bit about how you are different and what your design philosophy is. And do you want to start, Markus?
Okay, hello, I'm starting. So, Moreless is about more and less. It's the balance between choosing more and less. And we found it's really difficult to do that successfully. And we are trying to do this with this new venture of ours. We tried this before, and we were a bit successful, and we hope that we can continue that path.
Joe?
Yeah, as Markus said, more or less, it's bringing sort of the elements when you design into balance, and it's about we look at more or less as dials. You can look at all these elements that go into a product as dials, and you kind of dial things more up or more down to create something that in the end will be hopefully successful, but it also meets the needs of the end user.
Interesting. Would you mind passing the mic to Beau?
So Enlisted Design is a design cooperative, and what that is it's a truly unique way of collaborating with our client partners, so that we co-create products together. So some of our client partners are companies that are huge, like Clorox, and some of them are small startups like Urbio and others, where they'll, in their infancy, they'll come from Kickstarter or even smaller. And really what happens is we have our group of designers, there's about 12 of us, and the clients come in and we partner with them and we figure out all the business details, but then we really just co-create. And in the end, what happens is that our clients have a product that they were able to design with us rather than us designing a product and then gifting it to them. And so we have co-ownership, and we've had a lot of success with that.
I started my career with big companies, and quite often it came up that these are big ships that turn slow. And when I set out on my own, I was seeking to make some change in the good direction and harmonize that with who I am, my skill set, and the resources that are available. So I'm trying to make some turn in the good direction, and that's what led me to plants, gardening, growing plants. That's a space that I felt like I could apply myself and feel good about the result. If somebody uses the product, the result will be something that I can feel good about. In between that, I'm trying to help people who have even bigger missions than I can imagine and different skill sets. So where I can help them, I help, especially with design and manufacture.
I'm probably the most junior out of all everyone in the group here. I've only designed one product. But to me, what's really important in designing is you have to go beyond beauty and function. To me, there has to be emotional connection. And I want people, when they can use my product, they're able to adapt and kind of reinvent when utilizing it throughout the day to adapt with their changing needs. So that's really my design philosophy with Lumio, and hopefully you guys can check it out after the event.
So that's more about something spatial. Do you think there's spatiality in your more and less philosophy as well? Or is it more about more taking away and adding to the design? Markus?
I think that, the statue of David by Michelangelo, when he was asked, he was standing in front of that big block of marble, and he was asked what's going to happen to this big block of marble. He said, there's an angel inside, and I set to carve him free. So he took away all the redundancy, all the stuff that was not needed, but still there was this angel inside that he carved free. So a very essential kind of point of view. It's not about deduction. It's about evolving or creating something. You have something in your head. Of course, you have to eliminate certain things to get away or rid of the noise, but still you have that vision in your head. If that's not in your head, then it's difficult, very difficult.
Do you think that for you, Beau, working both with clients and on your own product, that you can did you do something similar, or do you start from a principle like that about creating, or do you start from somewhere else, like creating maybe a brand for someone? Is it about the experience, or is it about creating something that is iconic? Where do you see that?
So I see with the brand creation, I see brands in many cases as a physical manifestation or a material manifestation of the people behind the brand. And so I'd say my favorite clients or partners, or even within the companies that we launch out of Enlisted, like Urbio, is that they really become this physical manifestation of the people behind it. And that's where we get this emotional connection, because we get to say, okay, if I was a product and if I was to do this certain thing, this is what I would be like. And that's a lot of fun, because then when you meet the product and you meet the person, there's a connection there. And you get a feel for the person through the product and the product through the person.
Is that scary sometimes, Max, or maybe, yeah, Michael?
Yeah, I'm impressed with the emotion that's up on this panel. Might be the most engineer in the group here. I'm pretty concrete, sequential, tooling and machining oriented. I see product development as a series of challenges, a series of painful points. Fix the pain, fix the pain, fix the pain till there's no more pain, or the pain's small enough that we can ship it. Sometimes that pain is emotional. We're meeting with the industrial designers and marketing, and they're saying, absolutely not, this is horrible, do it over. And when that means revising shapes, revising materials and process, so that you can enable something that's less painful. That's where I thrive.
Was it always your intention to think about this idea of more or less and evolve it throughout a couple of different brands? Or did they come to fruition in different kinds of ways? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about why you started a couple of the different brands, or how?
So in the very beginning, and early on in my design life, I was working at IDEO, designing a lot of different products for all these amazing brands and companies. And in that process, it always came up the urge that why not do this on your own, or why not create something that you create and you envision the whole thing from beginning to end. And that was what ultimately drove me to create my own companies. First, I wanted to create, I guess, my own design studio with one company, and then my business partner, Kathy Bailey, who is now at Heath, who now runs Heath, and we set out to, I guess, cater to a lot of, I guess, different clients. Again, similar to what I was doing at IDEO, but doing it in a more small and controlled fashion. And the urge was still there to create something completely on my own, and that's where I sort of started InCase with a couple of design friends, and brought in a lot of business help. I think it's very important in the beginning to see what your strengths are. Your like what we've learned is creativity and design, and it only is successful or can be successful if you mesh that with business, like running the organization, thinking about different buckets that you need to actually comprehend and be like good at it or become good at it. Learn from different people with completely different skill sets. So in a roundabout way, we needed to create basically like 5 or 6 legs where we can be strong at not just design but cover the business end. And that was kind of something new for me as well. I think part of being a designer, and what's interesting about doing design, is that you actually get a chance to learn all these different things. And I think in the end that was what is still kind of exciting. Is it's always new, and it's always the unknown that you are searching for, and you are trying to understand and bring solutions to what you want to do.
what I think is really important is that we've kind of established that passion and creativity are very important, but that there's also a certain business acumen that you need to have. And what do you think is important in that respect? Do you think it's money? Do you think it's a good mentor? Do you think maybe, Beau, you're nodding. Do you have any answers to that?
The answer is yes.
To what? To everything?
Everything you just mentioned.
You think you started out of the right reason. You have an idea, you want to change something, you found a different approach to something, and then you realize that you can't deal with all this stuff, and you just started to mention that, and you have to find partners, and you have to find people who can get you over these hurdles, like founding Moreless, for example, and I bet InCase was the same. Just finding enough legal support, people who consult you in the right way and tell you, okay, you have to be careful here, but you can go over that hurdle, it doesn't matter. And there all these things that you haven't thought about. And you have this great idea and you're full of passion and you're enthusiastic, but you also have to be very responsible. It's like almost like having a kid. I don't have one, but I imagine, I have a few friends who have, but it's suddenly you're very responsible. You're not doing it for yourself. You have to get help, you have to consult, you have to do a lot of other things that you haven't done before.
And still be passionate about what you do.
Yes.
I think there's all these functional aspects of a company that you need to solve. But in the end, you still need to have the fun and kind of wake up in the morning and go like, okay, cool, this is exactly what I want to do today, and then figure out how to drive that forward.
And how, have there been, Beau, any people that have been really helpful to you, or pitfalls or moments where you were?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to have, in starting the company, you can have the passion and the vision and the excitement, but you have to have humble confidence, right? The confidence to get out of bed and be like, yes, we are doing this thing, and the humility to say, I can't do it alone, and this whole thing can be so much better with the right people than it can be with just me. And so finding the right people that you can trust for me, has been absolutely paramount. So, you know,
A couple things to add to that. I think you're very right on that, on point. I think when we started InCase, we actually had to share, we wanted to share with other people, and I think that's very important, to kind of give up of certain responsibilities and bring people in, and not be afraid of people actually joining as a full partner, or as someone that can actually go with you for a very long time. And I think only that way you can actually be successful.
Napoleon said, if you want to do something right, do it yourself. That's good for Napoleon, but he lost, and you need help.
So how do you build a brand that brings in the right people? How do you tell a story that is consistent with both your passions and other people's passions? And are there any kind of pointers there?
brand inflation. Right? So think people like Urbio, you know, is on Shark Tank and Kickstarter, and like you go on a United Air flight and you can watch Shark Tank 33 times as you go down the little, you know, screens and see us on there. It's like, wow, Urbio is this big thing. There are 3 full-time employees at Urbio. We have sales of under $1 million. It's not big, but you inflate the brand so that you can attract the right people, and then the promises and the vision is real, and that's legit, and that's solid. And so when the right people are able to come on, they're able to take this brand inflation that's happened and create brand acceleration.
So those right people,
Yeah.
how did you get to them? Are you still trying to find them?
We just brought on, I just stepped down as CEO last week of Urbio, and we brought on a guy from a company called Poppin. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Poppin, but they, for us, for Urbio, is like, Poppin's the coolest company out there. We want to be like them. And then we went to New York and tried to do a collaboration with them for a product line, and it ended up we were too similar. And so the guy that we were going to collaborate with we ended up talking for like 8 months, and he became an advisor, and then we were able to just bring him over. So there's, you know, luck and timing, and power is greater than us.
So going on to this big television show, you have to have a pretty clear vision of what you want, what story you want to tell, and what you're about. Have you felt that change over the last couple of months, or while you were doing this? Have you been able to like tighten the story, or have you had to broaden it? What kind of have you brought in people to help you with that? Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely brought in people to help us with it. So when we were on the show, we had only been around for, probably 6 months or so, and the Shark Tank folks kind of caught wind of what we were doing, and they saw our Kickstarter campaign, and so they called us, and they have like 24,000 applicants every season for the show, and they called us and said, hey, we want you to be on the show, and so we got to go on the show and meet with, Cuban and all those guys, and it was an amazing experience, but what we pitched on that show still is the core of what we are today, but we're just much broader. So our horizons have been expanded as we've been able to go into organization and maintain with Garten and being able to do things that we're working on now. So I'd say the story is at the core the same and our values are the same, but the opportunity has grown.
That's great. Max, would you ever go on Kickstarter or on Shark Tank?
A funny thing you mentioned, we were on Kickstarter actually, and we were fully funded through Kickstarter. And funny thing, we're almost like in the same trajectory because Shark Tank reached out to us as well, but not yet. We're still like in the process, so perhaps we'll see how it goes. But the thing is, these are great for expansion, right? But to me, you ask, how do you influence and get great people and talent? And for me, it's not a matter of size or how big I grow, but it's really believing what the value in my company and being genuine and being able to reflect that to people just through conversations. That's where you find people, and then through that you get talents. And this year we've been lucky that we have a lot of opportunities to expand, and there's big box retailers that approach us, but my focus is to stay about building the brand the first year and partner with other great brands. So we've been in MoMA, and then we're about to launch in Tokyo with Conran stores and MoMA Japan and a few other stores there. So we're very well, we actually had the launch party with Zinc Details locally.
You saw it here first.
Yeah, so I think to me, this year it's so important, just like starting slowly, and I'm excited with all the opportunities, and we'll see how far we go. But like the size doesn't matter as much, but I'm trying to just like go little by little and finding the right team that connects with me. Not so much about like, they don't have to be. Talent is really important, but they have to be able to speak with you, because I think connection, emotional connection, and also understanding who you are, what your vision is with the company, that is so much more important.
So you have a great vision, you have a lot of passion and a lot of creativity, you have a great team, you have a good story that you're trying to adhere to, and then you're talking to big box retailers and they say, can you make it cheaper? Or what can you change to make it more pink? Or, how far do you go, and what kind of struggles have you had over time in those kinds of instances? Maybe Joe, have you ever, had to fight for your design? I'm sure.
Absolutely, it's kind of on a daily basis. I think at Incase, I think most probably it was an experience where, I mean, for 10, 15 years, we have been selling products out into the marketplace, and you really have to choose wisely where to go and which retailer you associate with, and with which brand aligns with your brand. And in the end, retailers have a lot of power, and it's sometimes good, and sometimes it's also challenging, because everyone wants kind of their own special need met and have a different, I guess requirements for what sells in their stores. And if you're big and powerful, like those big box retailers, oftentimes you kind of have to make tweaks or hopefully not, like you fight to hopefully not make any changes, because in the end, it's I guess the consumers that you want to speak to is what hopefully is attracted to what you do and your product, not what, I don't know, someone specifically wants, and it's very hard that way. We have said no a lot of times, but also a lot of times we are okay with making tweaks as long as they still fulfill a certain integrity and a certain level of quality that we can feel good about it.
So you were, for instance, let's make up this story. You were selling at Zinc Details for a while, and you did Shark Tank, and all of a sudden you needed to meet this requirement from, let's say, Target, and they wanted 100,000 of your product. Now, what are you going to do? Have you guys, I've talked to so many makers that were going to try and go from makers to maker facturers or manufacturers or, you know, bigger brands. What are the pitfalls there? I think, Michael, you could talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, I've been through that a few times. I'm bootstrapping deliberately. I didn't want to be accountable to anybody. I've been under somebody's thumb for quite a few years. When doing my own, I wanted to exercise my values, and I think what came with that was trying to manage my builds in a way that I could afford for each build to fund the next build. And I'm at a point now where the sales from this container will fund the next container, and so on. So it takes care of itself, and that takes a lot of deliberate planning. My strength is design and manufacture, but to get the finances right so that this thing will be sustainable, it's hard crushing spreadsheets, make sure that the numbers are right. And there's been occasions where I just have to say no thank you. The first pallet I shipped was to Canada to Lee Valley Tools, and they asked for a price point that just wasn't sustainable, and I just had to set a boundary. I said no thank you. And the funny thing is, as soon as I said no thank you, then he said, oh, no problem, the PO's coming tomorrow. And I went through that with Home Depot yesterday. I just said no thank you, I don't think we can work together. And the funny thing is, they didn't care. So it's great, but they're at the scale that they don't need to care about me, and that's not the right relationship for me. And I think the same applies also with partners, people that I work with. I go on a lot of dates. Let's do a trial. What can you produce overnight? Show me tomorrow. You're telling a great story. I want to believe in it, and I want to support you. Let's test it out. And a few really good partnerships have come from that, especially with the vendors. I found it's really valuable to do a quick test. Find out really quick if this is a vendor that I can trust, because that container is a huge risk. Like the 6 weeks that it's shipping, I'm quite nervous. Make sure it arrives okay.
You did this, you manufacture a root cup with a group of people that have disabilities. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And you're manufacturing this locally. How important is this manufacturing locally for you? I might want to ask all of you this.
I was traveling a lot, so staying local I feel was valuable to me. Also, the majority of the cost actually in a lot of products is transportation and packaging. So in this shift to the good direction, I wanted to minimize that logistics chain. I started assembling in San Francisco at the Disabled Employees Rehabilitation and Dog Patch. Unfortunately, they're out of business, and that put me in a tough spot. I tried to get some space. I dealt with some really horrible landlords, a bunch of situations with salespeople and materials. Ultimately, it wasn't feasible to continue in San Francisco. So the vendor that was doing the molding in China is actually doing the assembly, and that's been a very good relationship. Their facility is as clean as anything I've ever seen in the world. It's in a town with lakes. It's quite a nice place. And for now, that's just been the option that's sustainable. As soon as I can get my own facility and control my own machines and equipment, I'll do that. That takes a certain scale. And actually, at that scale, I can produce the pieces at a lower price than I can overseas, and I can turn quicker. But it's definitely about scale. So that's my bottleneck right now, getting into enough places, managing each subsequent build to get to a big enough scale that I can make that outlay for space and equipment, which will bring the cost down and make it quicker turns, custom units, different colors, and so on.
A lot of people have a lot of passion when it comes to manufacturing and where a product is made. But this day and age, I mean, really, it's, you have, the way I see it, where it's made is, I wouldn't say less important, but my focus is how do I make the best product possible? And for me to reach that goal, I basically find where the best talent is and where the source, where the supply chain is already set up. Because it's foolish for me to manufacture electronics in the Bay Area. You're going to get crushed in a month, flat out. But then if it's more something that you make by hand, more limited run, it's foolish not to do it in your backyard. And I hate flying half across the globe to Hong Kong. It's not fun. It sounds glamorous, but it's not fun work. But at the same time, if you are trying to build a business, you have to be realistic, and you got to know at the end of the day, you have to find where the source is. That's it.
There's a lot of fallacies about China. I could go on about it forever, and you know, I kind of feel shame talking about China. As soon as somebody says, "Where's it made?" It's China. But actually, this is a group of people on this planet that's more or less, we're all breathing the same air, and they just happen to be extremely, extremely good at tooling and materials and process. And I've tried to produce locally in many different ways, and it's not just technology. It's absolutely not labor cost. Labor cost is a tiny part of this decision. The biggest decision for me is it's possible to get work done in a time period that's achievable to have a product. If I could do that locally, and there's some products where that is possible and actually really great to do locally. For a lot of products, it makes far more sense to do it where the people are specialized and very good and really want that work.
Let's make things in the world. What do you guys think about this? Joe, Markus?
I think you're right. There's a lot of I think talent in a lot of different places, and I think the quality can be found actually in many places in the world. Of course, I think for some products it would be great to manufacture them locally. Why not? I think if you have, I guess, the funds to start a small production here, and it probably costs you more to start it here, but maybe over time you get to a point where it actually makes sense to do it here.
With Soma, that water filter, we actually produced the tools in China, brought the tools over here and produced here. So you can do that too.
If you can still assemble here or mold it here, that's great.
Yeah, and I'm actually looking forward to design something. My next product, if I can, I really want to manufacture locally, because it's the whole reason why my background is in architecture, why I'm doing this designing product is because I want to have connection and really touch and feel. And sometimes when you're like managing like thousands of miles away, you lose that. But it's just based on what your business needs. But so I'm looking to I'm coming up with ideas what I can make locally and really see what materials are fit for the manufacturing in the area here.
That's wonderful. I wanted to ask you, Markus, you've worked for so many different kinds of brands, and now you have this brand Manimals, which is much more of a luxury brand and maybe a smaller brand. What is the difference working for different kinds of brands? And you're all consultants, and you've designed buildings maybe for different kinds of people. Like, what is the difference in experience working for different kinds of brands, and what is the difference in approach?
So Manimals is very small. It's not a real successful brand. It's just what I like to do. It's I discovered that, or I always knew that I want to form clay into shape, and that's why I became an industrial designer. But then there were computers and all this. But now I still do things with my hands, and that's how Manimals got originated. Working with different brands, I was at IDEO for quite some time, and then Joe brought me to Incase. I don't really know. It's always the challenge of getting along with people's goals. You go to Korea, or you go to Germany or America, or all this. These guys, they have a certain vision, and you help them to materialize that vision, and you kind of have to get aligned. And sometimes you don't get aligned, and then that's an issue. And so that's why Joe and we thought the best thing we could do is create our own products, because that's what you can control yourself. You can control the whole volume of the products, where they're gonna get produced, whom do you want to share them with, or who is gonna buy them, and all this. This is really fascinating to be in a place where you can not control that, but you don't have anybody else who tells you what to do. It's you do it yourself, and then of course there's things that happen, and then it doesn't work, and you have to wake up again and do it again and improve and all this. But working for consultancies, or working as a consultancy, is way different than creating a brand or manufacturing products. And Joe and we love manufacturing products, and we also like consulting, because here in the Bay Area, there's so many startups and so many people with great ideas, like Soma, for example. And working with them is almost like an own startup, because you are invested, you are invested in their success, meaning that you have royalties, because there's not much money available, and you really like their product or their idea, and you try to materialize that. And so it's kind of a mixed thing that we are in right now, but I love the challenge of producing things, whether it's for us or for ourselves or for you and the things you do, or you kind of work with startups who have great ideas. Today somebody came over and he said, these tennis ball machines, they suck. And he came in with a tennis ball machine. You know, these automatic machines that shoot at you? So he came up with this machine and took it out of his trunk, very heavy, and we thought, there's a huge opportunity there. We looked at this thing, it was so ugly, and nobody does that.
Less.
And now we are in a situation where we can say, let's do it. You do the engineering, we find somebody who does the apps, the applications, and then we find somebody who develops those. We find somebody, we know people who produce things, and then you put all your network together, and suddenly you have there's this idea coming from someone, and suddenly you feel empowered to do something completely different or new, and that's very interesting.
That's beautiful.
Maybe a couple of words. I totally agree. It's for us. It's actually really fun to work in both worlds. One, in the consulting world, it brings you out of your, I guess, you go over your own shadow, and you can actually see, you have insight into many different worlds and I guess brands and their needs, and you dabble within different, I guess, technologies or maybe no technology, and it keeps the mind fresh. And hopefully this is something where we can do this for our own brand and our own products, apply some of these learnings, and I guess really do it on your own in the end.
For me, the creative process is exactly the same, whether it's cutting a piece of wood in the garage. I made knives and I fixed motorcycles when I was growing up, and that experience, that feedback of making something, seeing it work or seeing a change is exactly the same as what I saw at Honda and Nokia and Apple. At the big places, there's a lot more distraction. I kind of have to abstract the social experience from what's really happening, which is material, tooling, and process. There's people executing on that, and incentives need to be aligned. A lot of time, if the incentive's wrong, the material and process and machine will break down. But the experience is the same, and I probably get wrapped up in my own projects a little bit with that selfish experience of creating something and getting the piece back. But it's so enjoyable. If I can find a way to make a business of it, I'd like to do that. And that becomes a bottleneck, is making the thing compelling enough to sustain itself.
Do you think it's different creating for someone else? And how much are you creating for yourself?
And that's the thing, actually. When I was hearing all of these comments, I actually wanted to ask you guys, do you ever, you're so passionate doing something that it becomes actually I mean, it just cannot be as effective as if you were to have a little bit of distance from the project, because that's one of the challenge with me. I'm like, this is my first product. I'm so into it. I love it so much. But once in a while, I realize, you know what? If I were to look back when I was consulting in the architecture world, I think a little bit of detachment helps a little bit, that distance. And I'm just curious to hear what your thoughts are.
I do this on flights. I do this in a sauna. I do this when I watch movies. It's really important to get this, to have that detachment from your work. And you have to plan for it. You have to really schedule the detachment into your schedule. Joe and I have a certain system how we detach, but others have different. And then a partner in crime is really good too, like a wingman or wingwoman that you can talk to and you can play ping pong with, and you get real good answers and challenging answers, and that's really good too. You and yourself, you're not good enough. I'm not talking about you specifically. You're good. No, I'm saying you need these people, and part of the success of a product or anything that you conceive is how well you work with, how well you know what you don't know, and how well you work with people that give you that perspective, that bird's eye again. That's very important.
I think we've established that it takes a lot of passion, it takes a lot of good connections, it takes some knowledge about manufacturing and how to stagger your brand and plan things to do to go into bigger places and make your brand even bigger over time. And then I think it's also really interesting how we've learned how much of yourselves is in those brands and how hard it is to detach.
We've sold almost all of your products in the store. I'm always amazed. It's always out of the box. But I'm always wondering, when you think of designing something, do you sometimes do market research? How do you get inspiration? Or, I mean, sometimes it's important you create a need. With a lot of your products, you've created a need or a want. So where do you get inspiration? And
I think there's some basic human needs that we all share in common, and trying to address those can become quite abstract, bringing it into a product. But at some point, it becomes material. At some point, it becomes an embodiment that can be shared with people. It's not going to work with everybody. In fact, most people are probably going to disagree with the embodiment, and it's very hard to weigh that feedback. Just keep moving forward, despite a lot of people disliking it. Kickstarter is a nice one because the community will decide. I'd like to see more tools like that. I've got, for every one thing I release, I've got 10 that are sitting there waiting to get out. I'd love a way to share those 10 because I know there's a lot of people that would take them. And if we get to 1,000 or 2,000 people that would like it, then let's do it. Yeah, sure. And they're just sitting there in the wings. So probably getting more eyes would be nice. I love the crowdsourcing community for that. And the maker community is really responsive about sharing, getting feedback quick. But sometimes feedback's not right. Henry Ford was saying that everybody would want faster horses, and I think that's probably, like you mentioned, creating a need. There's room to make things that don't exist, and just take a risk, try it.
So you mentioned that you can't do things on your own. You need to find other people to help you find those resources. You gave an example of sometimes law-knowing friends are very good to have. A lot of times we don't know what we need to know. So in your experiences, what do you think you needed to know that you learned, and how did you find those people to be your resources?
In our business, this network is just consistently growing with your enthusiasm. It's like proportional to your enthusiasm for the work that you do. Your network is growing, and you find so many people with really crazy ideas or very interesting questions that you want to solve. It just grows, and I'm from Germany, but I find here in the Bay Area it's just explosive. the whole, all these people with ideas in all segments. It doesn't really matter. I wish there would be more fashion or more movie or other industries here. But we're in the tech industry here. It's the capital, and there's so much. Like with Incase, we tried to bridge technology, the bridge between technology and fashion and lifestyle, and that was a challenge, and we did it. And there's so much other things. And nowadays, if you think about products, every product will become smart. It's what the founder of Nest said recently. So, well, there's a lot of work to do, now we have to do whatever, I don't know, lawnmower that has an app, and you just sit there and play games with your phone, and by the way, your grass is cut, or there's a lot of things. I actually asked you whether your flower pots out there are smart, and you said no, and I like that. Not everything has to be smart, yeah.
Yeah, not everything, but Arduino is pretty fun. And you mentioned network. There's a huge community of people out here. I've been playing with Arduino and some Bluetooth stuff, and I know nothing about it. I'm mechanical, but there's a huge community. There's a network of people who are playing with it and trying stuff. And I think by surrounding yourself with a community of people that are doing similar things, those things you don't know that you don't know, people will let you know that. I mean, they're all doing similar stuff, and they can recognize those things. And I've noticed that they're much more friendly about sharing. This community of makers and builders are much more friendly with sharing those things than in corporate, where it's a little bit more competitive, or it's a lot really collaborative and open sharing. I like to start with a philosophy or a need. In my case, I feel like green is good for us right now. That's a top-down philosophy that led me towards gardening. From a bottom-up philosophy, these are really concrete things. What's the right size for shipping? What can I ship for $5 on USPS? What's the right material? What's the right shape to suit the tooling? These are bottom-up drivers, and they float a little bit, though they joggle for quite a long time, sometimes a long time. I got a thing I've been playing with for 2 years, and it's still not ready to fall together. But where the top-down and the bottom-up meet, sometimes there's something that's compelling enough to become a product. I'm advising a startup, and they've started with the PR from the beginning. Meet with the people and say, here's my story as a person, here's what I'd like to do with a business, how can we turn that into a product? So the story is integrating from the beginning, rather than starting with an embodiment. Start with, especially in connected marketing, social media and stuff, the story has to be really compelling so people share it. Of course, I'm learning by failing, but I think it's really important now to start with a story that people will believe in, share, feel emotional about, and then populate a product behind that, especially now when materials and processes are becoming quite easy to access. Move quickly, populate something into a story that's timely and people will respond to.
So I think the story is a big part of it. When you start a company, whether it comes from a product or it comes from an idea, either way the story is going to be really important, because you're going to tell that story to so many people. I got the opportunity to tell it to 7 million people on TV, but not everybody gets that. You're going to tell it to investors, right? You're going to tell it to your friends and family. You're going to tell your story to media, to Zinc. You're going to tell your story so many times, and that story has to be genuine. It has to be real. For us, for Urbio, my business partner, Jared, and I, we both grew up in suburbs. I grew up in this little town, Carmel, and we had this beautiful little garden in the back of our house and a yard. And then I moved away from Carmel and moved to a city, and there was no yard and there was no, garden. But I missed that. I missed that connection with nature. And so looking at our walls in the studio, and just thinking, how can I revisit that connection that I had as a kid? And that the excitement of seeing the first red strawberry, or having plants on your walls. And then I looked at our bare walls, and I brought the whole team together and said, you guys, there's a need. Do you guys feel this need? Because I feel this need. And we just started sketching on it. And that was our story. And it was to fill a need. It was to have a product that we could go and tell this story with. And evidently other people have the same story and the same need.
I think you're absolutely right. I think the need is kind of first, like if you can answer the why you're doing it, or why does this certain product have to exist, then you can go into what is that product, and how am I going to build it? So the why, the what, and then the how.
And thank you also much for coming.